Now, there's one more scene in the story of Abraham that's a little bit of a dark one. It's the hardest one. But it's what brings all of this full circle, and it brings it all together. Because as it turns out, the story of Abraham is really not about Abraham. The story of Father Abraham is really about another father who would send his son to be a sacrifice for all of us. Check out what this is all about. Years after God promised Abraham about the land, he also promised him he would have a son to become a great nation. And so Abraham believed in this promise. It says he had faith that even though he and Sarah, his wife, in their old age would have a son, and eventually God provided that son, and that son's name was Isaac. And Isaac, as he grew up, and Abraham was doting upon him, this is my promised son who I love. God, you're going to make a great nation through Isaac because he's my only son. God asks Abraham to do something that was unthinkable at the time. In Genesis chapter 22, it says this: Then God said, take your son, your only son whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. This is the son that God had promised Abraham he was going to use to become a great nation. And Abraham is looking at this saying, God, you're asking me to sacrifice the one person who's going to make this possible. Now, early on in Abraham's life, he would have run away and said no. He would have lied. He would have cheated. He would have done whatever he could to get out of this. But because Abraham trusted God and God came through from him, and he trusted God and God came through for him, Abraham had developed this strong faith that was resilient. So when God said, Abraham, I want you to do this thing that you think is impossible, Abraham said, God, whatever it is you ask of me, I'm willing to do it. And so Abraham, with his son Isaac, his young son Isaac, they go up on this mountain where God shows them. And Abraham puts his son Isaac on the altar. And in obedience to God, he says, okay, God, I'm going to sacrifice my son Isaac here. And right before he does it, God says, stop, Abraham, stop. You don't need to do this. You don't need to go through with it. What God says to him is so interesting. He says, now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. And as I was reading this passage, it became very clear to me that God was not looking for Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac on the altar that day. God was asking Abraham to put himself on the altar that day. He was asking Abraham to say, your wants, your desires, all the things that you put in front of me sometimes, are you willing to put those on the altar and follow me wherever it is that you want to go, that wherever it is that I want you to go? And Abraham putting his only son on that altar was a sign to God, God, even my promised son, who all my hopes and dreams were wrapped up in, I'm willing to give him to you because I believe you are who you say you are, and you're going to do what you say you're going to do.